Welcome to Life Stories, where the truth is often more complicated than it seems. What if the person you trusted the most, the one who promised to always have your back, was the one who secretly sabotaged your life? Imagine being on the verge of the happiest moment of your life, only to realize the person pulling the strings behind it all has been hiding something dark, something dangerous. This isn't just a story about betrayal, it's about control. It's about a mother who, for years, shaped her daughter's life to fit her own image, manipulating every choice, every relationship. But when the truth comes to light, everything changes. The question is, will the daughter finally break free, or will she be trapped by the very woman who's supposed to love her? Stay tuned, because this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about family, loyalty, and love. The engagement party was meant to be the happiest moment of my life. The moment I could finally tell the world that Curtis and I were bound for forever, that everything I'd ever dreamed of was falling into place. It was supposed to be my night. But as I stood there, the glass of red wine trembling in my hand, something felt wrong, deep in the pit of my stomach. I could smell it before I even tasted it. The faintest, almost imperceptible note of something medicinal, something not quite right. But I didn't trust my instincts, not in front of everyone, not with my mother standing beside me, her eyes gleaming with that smile she always wore when she had something to prove. I could almost hear the whisper of her voice in my ear, the one that had been there my entire life. Don't ruin this for yourself. Her name was Jessica. My mother, the master orchestrator of every detail, from the napkins that had been folded by hand to the candles that were positioned just so, matching the wine labels, matching the mood. Everything had been curated down to the last detail, down to who was allowed to be there. I'd been so caught up in the whirlwind of it all that I hadn't noticed the cracks. My best friend, Olivia, had canceled just that morning, claiming it was too much stress for her. The text didn't sound like Olivia, but I let it slide. I let so many things slide that day. Curtis's aunt had just begun telling me about wedding cake flavors when my mother appeared behind me, a glass in each hand. She handed me one with that practiced grace, the smile never leaving her face. For the bride-to-be, she said. I took the glass without hesitation, even though something gnawed at me. The wine smelled odd. I held the glass up to my lips, then paused. My sister, Kate, slid up next to me, a wide grin on her face, radiant from a joke that had been told at her table. Cheers, future Mrs. Calderon, she said, her voice light, teasing. She reached for my glass, and before I could stop myself, I swapped it out, handing her mine. Ladies first, I smiled, watching as she laughed and took a sip. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but the knot in my stomach tightened. 30 minutes later, everything fell apart. I was helping arrange the candles near the buffet when I heard a scream. It sliced through the air, sharp and panicked. Kate! Someone shouted. I turned, heart hammering in my chest, and saw my sister stumbling toward the bar, her face pale, almost ghostly. She dropped everything, a glass, a plate, everything scattered as she crumpled to the floor. Chaos erupted. Voices blended together, rising and falling in panic. I ran, instinct overriding reason. By the time I reached her, someone was already on the phone with 911. My mother was kneeling beside her, holding her hand, but the way she was fanning Kate with a cocktail napkin, it was all wrong. It looked rehearsed. She drank too fast, my mother said, glancing up at me, her smile tight, rehearsed. She looked at me, eyes flickering for a split second as if waiting for my reaction. I stood frozen, unable to speak, my mind swirling. Kate had drunk from the glass I was supposed to have, the one that my mother had handed me, and I hadn't even noticed. Later that night, I stood in the shower for what felt like hours, scrubbing until my skin burned, the scent of the wine lingering in my nostrils. It wasn't just the wine. It wasn't just the party. It was everything. 2 days earlier, Olivia had texted me, "Hey, your mom called. She said you're overwhelmed and suggested I stay away so you can have space." It didn't make sense. I had been confused, sure, but why would my mother want to keep Olivia away? And now it hit me. She wasn't just controlling the party, the guest list, the playlist. She had orchestrated everything. Every interaction, every word, every moment that I should have noticed and didn't. She knew Olivia was the one person I would have turned to, and she had made sure she wasn't there. My mind raced with everything I had ignored. Why didn't I see this before? It wasn't just the party, the wine. It was everything. My mother had been shaping my life, controlling it, pulling the strings, and I hadn't even realized it. The moment Curtis tried to talk to me, his words were like a slap in the face. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice hesitant. "It's about your mom." He told me everything. 3 days before the party, Jessica had asked to meet him. They sat in a quiet cafe, and she'd casually mentioned my ex, Gavin, like it was nothing. Then she had made her offer. "She told me," Curtis paused, eyes avoiding mine, "that you deserved stability. She said you shouldn't be with me, that I wasn't good enough. She offered me money to walk away, to end things before they could start." My mind spun. "She bribed you?" "She didn't use that word," he muttered. "But yes, that's exactly what she did." I felt a cold wave wash over me. This wasn't just my mother manipulating my life. She had manipulated everyone, and she had almost succeeded. But it didn't stop there. Olivia had received a strange anonymous message that same morning. "You're interfering. Stop. This will only make things worse." I couldn't ignore the pattern anymore. My mother had done this before. In high school, she had convinced me that my best friend Jenny was a bad influence. In college, she convinced me that Lauren, my roommate, was secretly spreading rumors about me. Everyone close to me became toxic in her eyes. Always for my own good, she said. And I had listened. I had spent years letting her define my world, my relationships, my reality. But no more. I called Olivia and told her everything. Together, we gathered evidence. The video footage from the venue, the prescriptions in my mother's bathroom, even a statement from Mr. Cletus, the neighbor, who had seen my mother dump something down the alley the night of the party. The truth was ugly, and it was just beginning to unfold. But as I stood there, staring at the evidence before me, something inside me clicked. I wasn't going to run from this anymore. Do you think family can truly be trusted, even when they manipulate you for their own benefit? How far would you go to protect the people you love from someone who controls everything around them? I couldn't wait to see where this twisted game would take me. But I knew one thing. It was time to stop being the pawn and finally take control. I opened my laptop and typed, "Documenting patterns. Jessica Ridgway." This was only the beginning. I sat at my desk, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, the weight of the evidence before me pressing down on my chest. I had everything. The footage from the venue, the prescriptions, Mr. Cletus' statement, a clear picture of the twisted web my mother had spun. Yet there was something gnawing at me, a fear I couldn't shake. I had come so close to understanding her manipulation, but now that I was staring the truth in the face, I wasn't sure how to move forward. I thought about my sister Kate, still recovering in the hospital. The doctors assured me she'd be fine, but I knew the damage went deeper than just a physical collapse. She had drunk from the glass my mother had tampered with. She had been the target, but her suffering felt like my own. How could I let this go on? How could I have allowed my own mother to pull the strings of my life for so long? I thought about Curtis, sitting in the living room, waiting for me to return. He didn't know the whole truth yet. I hadn't told him about the blackmail, or the fact that my mother had tried to destroy him too. What did I owe him? He had always been kind, patient, protective, but now I wasn't sure if I could let him in any further. The walls I had built around myself were crumbling, but with them, my own sense of who I was beginning to crack. I grabbed my phone and dialed Olivia's number. The call rang 3 times before she picked up. "Maura?" Her voice was a lifeline, a tether to sanity. "I have to talk to you," I said, my voice tight. "I'm so close, but I don't know what to do next. If I expose her, if I release this, it'll ruin everything. My family, Curtis, me. She's already lost control, and I know this will make it worse. But what's the alternative? To let her keep manipulating me? Let her keep controlling everything? There was a pause on the other end. I could hear Olivia taking a deep breath before she responded. You've been living in her shadow for too long, Mora. You have to take control of your own life now, no matter the cost. Her words stung, but they were true. I had been afraid of my own voice, of my own choices for so long. My mother had taught me that my desires didn't matter, that her version of the world was the only one that was real. And now it was time to break free. But as I hung up the phone, I felt the weight of the decision pressing on me again. What would it cost to confront my mother head on? What would happen when I exposed the truth? Would it be worth losing everything? The days since the party had blurred together. I'd spent hours poring over the footage, the files, and my own memories of the moments I'd let slip through my fingers. Yet each time I sat down to do something with the evidence, a voice inside me warned me that there was still something I hadn't uncovered. Something deeper. The next morning, I woke up to an unexpected message on my phone. It was a screenshot from Raina, her face pale in the photo, her eyes wide with shock. The message read, I found something you need to see. I opened the file she'd sent me, and my stomach dropped. It was an email thread, one that had been sent from an anonymous address, one that looked almost identical to mine, except for a single letter. The message inside was chilling. I'm glad you've decided to take control. You don't realize what this will cost you, but I'll make sure you regret it. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. The fear in my chest spread like wildfire. This wasn't just about my mother anymore. Whoever had sent this, whoever was behind the curtain pulling the strings, knew exactly what I was about to do. They knew I was planning to expose Jessica, to bring her secrets into the light, and they were warning me, threatening me. I felt a sudden chill in the air, my breath catching as the enormity of the situation hit me. I wasn't just fighting my mother anymore. This was bigger than her. Whoever was behind this had power, more power than I realized. Curtis knocked softly at the door, interrupting my thoughts. His eyes met mine, filled with concern. Mora, what's going on? You're pale. Are you okay? I swallowed hard, forcing a smile. I'm fine. Just a lot on my mind. But it wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. And as Curtis moved to sit beside me, I knew that things were about to escalate in a way I hadn't imagined. You're not fine, he said, his voice soft but firm. Whatever's going on, I'm here. You don't have to do this alone. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to lean into his words, to let his support wrap around me like a blanket. But the truth was, I felt more alone than I ever had. I had to face this on my own. I couldn't let anyone else get hurt because of my mother. I wouldn't drag Curtis into the mess that I had let fester for so long. I have to take care of this, I whispered, more to myself than to him. I have to stop her before she destroys more lives. Curtis stood up, his hands resting on the back of the chair as he looked at me with something like resignation in his eyes. I can't protect you from her, Mora, but I'll stand by you, no matter what you choose. I nodded, grateful for him, but the tension in my chest only grew heavier. I wasn't sure I could fight this battle and still come out whole. There was a part of me that wondered if it was too late to stop. The next few days were a blur of phone calls, research, and meetings with lawyers. Every time I thought I had a solid plan, something new would surface. I was constantly one step behind. And then, just when I thought I was finally gaining some control, I received another message. This time it was from my mother. It was simple, straightforward. I know what you're planning. You won't win. The powerlessness washed over me again like a tidal wave. Was I really fighting an invisible enemy all this time? Was I really fighting her? Have you ever faced an invisible enemy, someone whose power felt insurmountable, and you weren't sure if you could ever defeat them? The room was silent except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. The tension in my chest felt suffocating. I couldn't just sit here and wait anymore. I couldn't let her control me any longer. The time for waiting was over. I was ready to take action. But was I ready to face the consequences of everything I'd uncovered? And if I exposed the truth, would it finally be enough to break free from her hold? The final confrontation was coming, And this time, I wasn't backing down. The day of reckoning had arrived, the final confrontation. There was no more running, no more pretending. I had gathered everything I needed: the footage, the photos, the statements. The world was about to see Jessica for who she really was, and I was determined to stand tall when it all came out. But in the silence of my room, as I sat alone with the weight of it all, I felt the sting of something I hadn't anticipated: doubt. I thought about Curtis, his unwavering support. I thought about Olivia, who had been my rock through all of this. I thought about Kate, still recovering, and how much she deserved to know the truth about our mother. But more than anything, I thought about my own heart, the fractured parts of myself that I'd buried under years of fear, control, and manipulation. Could I really let the world see Jessica's true face, knowing that it would destroy her, at least in their eyes? Could I live with the fallout? I had spent so many years trying to keep the peace, to keep everyone around me happy, to fulfill the expectations my mother had set for me. She had created a world where I thought I was in control, but in reality, I was just a puppet dancing to her strings. Now, I had the chance to cut those strings. But as I reached for my phone to make the final call, I hesitated. I had never been brave enough to question her before, to see the cracks in her perfect facade. And as much as I hated to admit it, a part of me still wanted her approval, still wanted her love, even if it was twisted. Would this expose the final truth? That she had never truly loved me? Or would it just expose how far I was willing to go to break free? The phone rang, a sharp sound that pulled me from my thoughts. It was Curtis. His voice, steady but filled with worry, crackled through the line. "Mora, you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to carry all of this weight on your own. I'm with you, every step of the way." His words settled on me like a weight, grounding me in the reality of what I was about to do. The truth would come out, no matter the cost. And in the end, it wasn't about destroying Jessica. It was about saving myself, reclaiming the life I had been denied for so long. I had to believe that. I picked up my phone, hands trembling. I called Olivia first. "It's time," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm doing it. I'm exposing her." There was a pause on the other end. "Are you sure?" Olivia's voice was quiet, but the concern was evident. "I have to be sure," I replied, my voice shaking but resolute. "I can't keep living in this lie. She won't control me anymore." I hung up, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt the weight of control shift from her hands to mine. It wasn't just a release. It was a reclaiming of my own power. A power I didn't even know I had until now. The video was uploaded. The post was live. The truth was out there for everyone to see. The room felt suffocating, the silence deafening as I watched the views climb, the comments pouring in. People reacted in shock, some in disbelief, others with anger. But one thing was clear. They all saw her for what she was: a manipulator, a liar, a woman who thought she could control everything around her, including me. The first message came from Curtis, who had watched the video. "You did it," he texted. "I'm so proud of you. You freed yourself." But the second message hit me like a freight train. It was from my mother. "I never wanted this for you. You've always been a disappointment. I did everything for you, and this is how you repay me." I stared at the message, my breath catching in my throat. Part of me had expected this, expected her to turn it around and make me feel guilty, make me feel like I was the one who had done something wrong. But for the first time in my life, I didn't fall for it. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Her words didn't hold the same power over me anymore. The next day, I met with Kate. She was still shaken from the events of the party, but she was stronger than I had ever known her to be. She walked into my apartment, her face pale but determined. "I watched the video," she said, sitting down beside me. I had no idea how far she went. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "I didn't either, Kate, but we're not the only ones. You're not the only one who's been hurt by her. It's time to let everyone see her for who she really is." Kate reached out, taking my hand in hers. "You're right. She's not our mother anymore, not in the way we thought she was." Tears welled up in my eyes, but they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of freedom. of release, of letting go. As I sat with Kate, watching the storm of reactions online, I felt a strange calm wash over me. I had done what I needed to do. The pieces of my life that had been scattered for so long were finally coming together. I was no longer defined by her, no longer a shadow of her expectations. Later that afternoon, I got a call from Curtis. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice thoughtful. "You're not just freeing yourself, you're freeing everyone she's ever tried to control. You've shown them that they don't have to live in fear anymore. And maybe that's the most powerful thing you've done." His words struck me deep, and I realized that in exposing Jessica, I hadn't just freed myself. I had shown the world how dangerous the illusion of control could be. How dangerous it could be to live under the thumb of someone who believed their love came with strings attached. A few weeks passed, and things began to settle. Jessica had fallen silent. People had started to talk, to share their own stories, their own struggles with manipulation and control. It wasn't just my fight anymore. It was a collective awakening. And then one day, out of nowhere, I received a letter from her. It was short, cold, and to the point. "You will regret this." But I didn't feel fear anymore. I felt nothing. The power had shifted, and for the first time in my life, I knew I was the one in control. How do you deal with the people who try to control your life? Have you ever had to break free from a toxic relationship to find your true self? If this story resonated with you, comment 100 to show your support. Where are you watching from? Share your thoughts and your location in the comments below. Don't forget to share this video with your friends. Thank you for watching Life Stories, where we share the stories that matter.